The moment I knew something was off was when Rachel, the HR intern, started avoiding eye contact in the hallway. She used to offer that overly rehearsed smile, the same one from her weekly team spirit emails. But that morning she was clutching her coffee like a security blanket, mumbling morning without ever looking up. Our office air always carried a faint scent of lemon disinfectant and panic. A strange mix of stress and fake cleanliness. I worked in finance audit at Larkwell Industries, a place where the hum of fluorescent lights drowned out the people. My job was precision. Numbers, forms, timestamps. I was the one who ensured we didn't accidentally commit federal fraud by missing a box on a compliance report. Glamorous, I know. For 8 years I'd been there. Never missed a deadline, never caused a scene, never used a sick day without a medical note to prove it. And yet, that Friday at exactly 9:02 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message from the HR department that would end everything. The subject was company update, a policy violation notice. The attachment, IM_4751 JPG. When I opened it, my stomach dropped. It was my photo, my ID badge headshot. Below it, in bold red letters, fired for leaving 2 minutes early. Do not rehire. They had sent the email to everyone. Every department, every contractor, even the company mailing list for our external partners. 2 minutes early. 2. I just stared, unable to move for a solid minute, while the chat notifications began to explode. What __? Is this real? HR gone wild? Someone even reacted with a laughing emoji. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just felt hollow, as if someone had vacuumed out my chest. I minimized the email and pulled up my timesheet. Thursday, clocked out at 4:58 p.m. We'd been told repeatedly that as long as we worked our full 40 hours, a flexible exit within 5 minutes was fine. Even my manager Carl had said, "Don't stress about it." Except Carl wasn't answering his phone now. At 9:15 I heard footsteps. Deliberate, clipped, heels striking the tile like punctuation. It was Lexa, our head of HR. A woman who wore power suits and spoke in slogans. Workplace culture is everyone's responsibility, she always said. Usually right before firing someone for attitude misalignment. Mandy, she said, stopping at my desk. Her tone was calm. Too calm. Let's talk in my office. I followed her down the hallway, past the wall of framed motivational posters. Integrity, teamwork, excellence, words that meant nothing here. Her office smelled of vanilla candles and authority. She gestured for me to sit, then slid a printed paper across the desk. A termination notice. The reason? Early departure without manager approval. I blinked. You sent that to the whole company? Lexa smiled. Small, deliberate. Transparency is part of our new accountability model. Transparency, I repeated slowly. You humiliated me. It's not personal, she said, the line clearly rehearsed. You violated timekeeping policy by 2 minutes. Her smile tightened. Rules exist for a reason, Mandy. If we make exceptions for one, we lose structure. I wanted to laugh, but it came out as a breath caught sideways. Structure, I said. Got it. I stood up quietly. Then you should probably check your structure, because those compliance reports you just submitted to the Department of Energy still have my name on them. She blinked, thrown off for half a second, then recovered. That's not relevant. It will be. I didn't wait for a reply. I walked out, grabbed my bag and passed 3 coworkers pretending not to stare. Someone whispered. I heard it was about theft. Another said. No, she cursed at HR. Gossip travels faster than logic in a corporate ecosystem. By the time I reached the parking lot, my phone showed 47 unread messages and 1 missed call from legal. I ignored them all. At home I sat in silence. My apartment was small. 1 bedroom, paper-thin walls, and a window view of a grocery store loading dock. I made coffee, opened my laptop and logged into my personal email. I had a copy of everything, audit reports, timestamp logs, signed compliance chains. Because after years in this job, you learn to keep receipts, especially when the company you protect doesn't protect you back. I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I just wanted truth. But the thing about truth is, once it's documented, it's unstoppable. At 3:07 p.m., a new message landed in my inbox from the Federal Energy Oversight Agency. The subject: follow-up on compliance logs. Urgent. I froze. They were auditing the grant reports. The ones Lexa had filed using my credentials. The same ones I hadn't signed off on yet. Somewhere between the click of her send button and my name disappearing from payroll, Larkwell had made a fatal mistake. They'd used a non-authorized clearance for a federal contract. I reread the email twice, then leaned back. My heart wasn't racing. My hands didn't shake. Just a strange, heavy calm. I opened the attachment. There in black and white was the signature line. Authorized Officer, Mandy Carson. Except I hadn't signed it. I looked out the window at the gray sky. The first drops of rain tapped the glass like punctuation marks. They fired me for leaving 2 minutes early, but they had no idea that in those 2 minutes they'd set off a clock they couldn't stop. By Monday morning, my name had become a ghost story whispered between cubicles. Did you hear about Mandy? Yeah, HR blasted her to everyone. Apparently, she was stealing time. Stealing time. The irony almost made me laugh. I woke up early that day, not because I had anywhere to be, but because my body was still wired to start reviewing spreadsheets at 6:30 a.m. The routine felt empty now. No team notifications, no corporate chatter. Just the hum of my old laptop and the bitter smell of overbrewed coffee. I didn't plan to check my old work email. But when I did, I noticed something strange. The login still worked. HR had deactivated my ID badge, cut my access to payroll, and sent my photo to the entire company. But they hadn't revoked my clearance to the compliance archive. That told me everything I needed to know about their structure. At 9:04 a.m., I opened the system and ran a routine query. Form 22B, Federal Grant, Energy Infrastructure Stabilization Contract 0415. The access log showed something alarming. The documents had been re-uploaded Friday evening, 1 hour after my termination, with my name still listed as the authorized certifier. The problem: once a certification form is submitted with an inactive employee ID, it's automatically flagged for a compliance audit, which means the Department of Energy's Oversight Office would be notified. They had triggered a federal audit the moment they hit send. I sat there staring at the screen, realizing the scope of it. If the agency system had already detected it, someone from the government would show up. Probably not today, maybe later in the week, but soon. I didn't have to do a thing. By 11:22 a.m., the first email came through from Franklin Marlowe, Chief Operations Officer, to the HR Department and Legal Compliance. The subject: Urgent Oversight Visit Scheduled. The body read: We've received notice that a federal liaison will be visiting the office tomorrow regarding recent contract submissions. Please ensure all documentation is organized and the HR situation with Mandy Carson is fully resolved. They had no idea I could still see everything. That night I barely slept. My mind kept replaying that ridiculous email with my face. How Rachel had avoided my eyes. How Lexa had smiled like it was just another day at work. I wasn't angry anymore, just steady, cold, focused. The next morning at 8:47 a.m., the federal liaison arrived. I wasn't there, but later I'd get every detail from a friend in legal, someone who'd once trusted me with her resume. She said the man walked in wearing a plain gray suit, no badge visible, holding a thick black binder. He introduced himself simply as Agent Donovan, Federal Oversight and Compliance Division. Franklin greeted him with his usual corporate charm, fake laughter and firm handshakes. Lexa was already waiting in the boardroom, folder in hand, posture perfect, HR's champion of professionalism. According to my friend, they began the meeting with Lexa proudly explaining my termination. She used the same words she'd said to me. Mandy violated our structure by leaving early without authorization. Accountability is key to maintaining integrity. The agent didn't react. He just opened his binder, turned a few pages, then said quietly, Miss Carson's signature appears on 6 active grant certifications, including 1 submitted post-termination. Can you confirm she was still employed at that time? Lexa frowned. She was not. But that's irrelevant to the contract itself. He looked up. Actually, that's very relevant. Using the credentials of a terminated employee on a federal document constitutes a misrepresentation under Clause 12.4 of your grant agreement. The room went silent. Franklin shifted in his chair. We didn't realize. The agent interrupted, reading one line aloud from the binder. Any certification submitted under the authority of a non-active employee is grounds for immediate audit suspension and potential funding freeze. The company lawyer, a man named Barlow who always bragged about his Harvard degree, reportedly went pale. Then, as my friend described, he stood up and shouted, "You have to be kidding me. HR sent that form without clearance." The agent just closed his binder. "Then you'll want to speak with HR about that." He left a business card on the table, walked out without shaking hands, and just like that, the silence that followed apparently felt like the end of the world. My friend messaged me later that afternoon. One sentence. "Mandy just won." Barlow screamed. Lexa looked like she'd seen a ghost. I sat in my kitchen rereading that message, the late sunlight stretching across the counter. My half-drunk coffee had gone cold, but I didn't care. The machine had turned on itself, and all I had done was stay quiet. At 5:12 p.m. my work account finally locked me out. Too late. I'd already downloaded every file, every timestamp, every email chain. I stored them neatly in a folder on my desktop labeled Receipts. The company wanted to humiliate me. They wanted to make an example. Instead, they'd become their own case study in arrogance. I closed my laptop and looked at the small photo still taped to my fridge. A picture of me and my team from years ago. Everyone smiling, eyes bright, back when we believed this place actually cared. Now I just whispered to the photo, half a smile tugging at my mouth. "You wanted transparency, Lexa. Hope you like what's coming." The next morning I woke up to 32 missed calls and a flood of unread messages. My old coworkers, most of whom hadn't spoken to me in months, were suddenly desperate to reconnect. "Hey Mandy. Weird question. Did you ever sign something for the DOE contract?" Lex is freaking out. "Something about a funding freeze. You didn't send anything to the feds, right?" I didn't reply to any of them. I just stared at the screen, coffee cooling beside me, the same way someone might watch a building slowly start to collapse in the distance. I hadn't pushed it. I'd only existed exactly as they described me. Quiet, invisible, compliant. But that was the thing about compliance. When it breaks, it doesn't scream. It echoes. By 9:10 a.m., the news had hit the internal network. My friend in legal forwarded me a screenshot from the company intranet. It read, "Due to recent administrative discrepancies, all energy infrastructure contracts are under temporary review. Please refrain from discussing this matter externally." Translation: they were in trouble. According to her, Agent Donovan had returned early that morning. This time he wasn't smiling. He came with 2 assistants and asked to see the complete audit trail for every document bearing my name. HR scrambled. Lexa claimed she'd already handled the matter, but the assistant pulled up the file metadata in real time. My user ID was still active at the moment of submission. You could have heard a pin drop. Franklin apparently tried to spin it as a technical oversight. The lawyer jumped in with corporate jargon about administrative carryover. But Donovan didn't argue. He just kept writing in his notebook. Finally, he said something no one in that boardroom will ever forget. "You distributed an employee's termination notice to external partners while still using her credentials on federal filings. That's not an oversight. That's falsification." My friend said the color drained from Lex's face like ink down a drain. The lawyer whispered something about needing to consult upstairs. Franklin rubbed his forehead and muttered, "How bad is this?" Donovan looked up, calm as a surgeon. "Bad enough that you'll be hearing from our contracts division before lunch." When I read that line in my friend's text later, I didn't smile. I just exhaled. For months, even years, I'd watched that company weaponize policies against people who couldn't fight back. They'd humiliated interns for typos, docked pay for bathroom breaks, written up employees for leaving 5 minutes early. And now, the same system that demanded absolute obedience was turning on them for the same thing. At 11:47 a.m., I received an email from my former manager, Carl. The subject line simply read, "Can we talk?" I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. His message was short. "Mandy, I had no idea they'd gone that far. HR told me you resigned voluntarily. The federal auditors are requesting your original access logs. We can't locate them on the server. If you still have copies, please call me. We're in real trouble." I leaned back in my chair, reread his words twice, then took a slow sip of coffee. For the first time in weeks, it actually tasted good. I didn't call him, but I did reply. Hi, Carl. Hope you're well. Unfortunately, I'm no longer authorized to assist Larkwell Industries. Please direct all inquiries to Federal Oversight. Warm regards, Mandy. Within an hour, I got another message, this time from an unfamiliar address. Miranda.clarkwelllegal.com. I remembered her. Junior counsel, quiet, always doing the work others took credit for. She wrote, off the record, they're blaming you. Lexa told the board you sabotaged the system out of spite, but the logs prove otherwise. Hold on to whatever you have. You might need it. That line, you might need it, hit harder than I expected because she was right. This wasn't over. By late afternoon, headlines started whispering across internal channels. A local business blog posted an anonymous tip. Major contractor under federal audit after internal HR scandal. They didn't name names, but I recognized the phrasing. Anonymous sources confirmed termination emails were sent publicly before compliance reviews were complete. I watched it spread like a quiet storm. Around 6 p.m., I received one last message from Rachel, the intern. The same girl who couldn't look at me that morning. She wrote, I'm sorry. Lexa made me hit send. She said it was just an internal memo. I didn't know your photo was attached. I stared at her words for a long time. My anger softened just a little. She was young, scared, replaceable, just like I had been once. I typed back, it's okay, Rachel. Take screenshots of everything and back them up somewhere safe. You might need them too. When I hit send, a strange calm washed over me. Outside, the city lights blinked in the distance, cold and mechanical. Somewhere in a fluorescent boardroom, people who once treated me as disposable were now watching their empire unravel one compliance clause at a time. And all I'd done was leave 2 minutes early. By Wednesday, the story had reached the local business press. Larkwell Industries under federal investigation for grant irregularities. No details, no names, just that haunting phrase, grant irregularities. Anyone who's ever worked in corporate knows what that really means. Someone's about to take the fall. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Former colleagues, LinkedIn recruiters, even journalists. I ignored them all. I wasn't ready to talk. I didn't want revenge headlines. I just wanted the truth on record. And for the people who weaponized humiliation to feel a fraction of the same exposure they gave me. At 9:12 a.m., my friend Miranda from legal texted again. They're calling an emergency compliance hearing this afternoon. Franklin, Lexa, and Barlow are all required to attend. Agent Donovan will be there. My hands went cold. She added one more line. They're asking about you again. I sat at my kitchen table staring at my laptop. Part of me wanted to go, to walk in and watch their faces crumble when the agent read the words, non-authorized use of federal credentials. But that wasn't my job anymore. I wasn't their compliance officer. I was just the woman they'd fired over 2 minutes in a rumor. Still, I couldn't resist logging into the public register of oversight notices. It's open access if you know where to look. And there it was in the digital bulletin. Notice of audit suspension. Larkwell Industries. Immediate review. Pending clarification of active named certifier status. Federal funding frozen. That line meant millions of dollars. Frozen. Just like that. I closed the tab and let out a slow breath. The sound of rain against the window filled the silence. For a moment, I felt almost sorry for them. Almost. By noon, Miranda called me, her voice low, whispering like she was hiding in a hallway. They're in the boardroom right now. The agent's binder is out again. You should hear this, Mandy. You shouldn't. I'm muting myself. Just listen. Through the faint static, I could hear the shuffle of papers, a cough, the creak of expensive leather chairs. Agent Donovan's voice was calm, precise. The record shows Miss Carson's credentials were used post-termination to authorize federal submissions. Who approved that? Lexa's tone came sharp, defensive. We followed procedure. The documents were completed prior to her termination. There must have been a system delay. Donovan. The timestamp shows upload at 5:18 p.m., 2 hours after her access was revoked. A pause, then Franklin. That must be a mistake. Our IT team. Barlow cut in, his voice cracking. Do you realize what you've done? You circulated her firing email to external partners, then used her credentials on active contracts. That's not procedure. That's negligent. Silence. Then Donovan again, softer this time. Negligence would be a generous interpretation, counsel. I heard papers turning, a pen tapping. Per clause 12.4, he continued. This qualifies as a breach of certification integrity. You'll receive a formal penalty notice within 48 hours. Federal funds will remain frozen pending full review. Someone, maybe Franklin, exhaled sharply like he'd just been punched. Barlow muttered, Jesus Christ. Lexa's voice trembled now, stripped of polish. Agent Donovan, with respect, this isn't fair. This started with a minor policy issue. She left early. He cut her off. You humiliated an employee over 2 minutes of time and used her name on $6 million worth of federal paperwork. Fairness is relative. My heart pounded as I listened. I could almost see her expression, that perfectly practiced corporate composure cracking at the edges. Then came the sentence that would later make headlines in every industry newsletter. Effective immediately, Donovan said. Larkwell Industries is suspended from all Department of Energy contracts pending further review. You'll also need to provide documentation explaining why a terminated employee's photo was circulated publicly. That constitutes a data breach. Barlow swore under his breath. Franklin's voice broke. Is there any way to resolve this quietly? The agent replied. You can try, but the report's already filed. My team doesn't do quiet. And that was it. The sound of chairs scraping, paper shuffling, the slow collapse of arrogance. Miranda whispered. He just walked out. I didn't say anything. My throat felt tight. My pulse steady but loud in my ears. Mandy, she added quietly. Lexa's crying. I closed my eyes. For a long moment I didn't know how to feel. I wasn't happy. Not angry either, just resolved. That afternoon a news alert hit my phone. Federal Oversight suspends Larkwell Industries. Breach of certification integrity alleged. No one mentioned my name, but anyone inside the company would know. That night I took a walk. No destination. Just city blocks and neon reflections on wet pavement. I thought about how easily they turned on me, how publicly they tried to erase me. And now, because of one careless email, they'd erased themselves. When I got home, another message waited in my inbox from Miranda. Just 2 words. They're done. I sat down, took a long breath, and whispered to the empty room. No, Miranda. They just learned what accountability really looks like. 3 weeks later, the building that once consumed my life looked smaller. Maybe it was the distance. Or maybe the illusion of power finally faded once I stopped standing beneath its fluorescent lights. Larkwell Industries, once the self-proclaimed pillar of corporate integrity, now sat under federal investigation, its name quietly removed from half the partnership listings it used to brag about. I hadn't heard from anyone except Miranda. She'd quit 2 days after the hearing. Said the board wanted her to restructure all compliance documentation, but refused to pay overtime or legal counsel to do it. They're still pretending this can be fixed, she told me. It can't. She was right. You don't rebuild trust with scented candles and new HR slogans. You rebuild it with honesty, something Larkwell never learned. That Monday morning, a thin white envelope slid through my mail slot. No return address, just my name printed neatly across the front. I turned it over in my hands for a long time before opening it. Inside was a single sheet of letterhead. Department of Energy, Federal Oversight Division. Dear Miss Carson, the department acknowledges your role as the original certifying officer on multiple Larkwell Industries grant submissions. Following the completion of our audit, your documentation has been verified as accurate, and your termination has been noted as unrelated to federal performance. We are pleased to inform you that due to your compliance record, you are eligible to serve as an independent consultant on future oversight reviews. Please contact our office if interested. Respectfully, Agent M. Donovan. I must have read it 10 times. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't dramatic. It was just clean, factual acknowledgement, the kind of truth that doesn't need to shout. But that letter meant everything. It meant my name wasn't a scarlet label anymore. It meant they couldn't bury me under that red marker. Do not rehire. I placed the letter on the kitchen table beside my laptop and just sat there in silence. The sunlight fell across the paper in a soft rectangle, like a quiet apology from the world. At 11:07 a.m., my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Mandy. The voice was rough, tired. It was Franklin. I didn't say anything at first. He cleared his throat. Look, I wanted to call personally. Well, the company's going through restructuring. I know things were. He stopped, searching for words. You didn't deserve what happened. None of it. I let the silence hang just long enough to make him squirm. Then I said, you sent that email to the entire company. He sighed. I didn't. HR did. Lexa is gone, by the way. So is Barlow. They resigned after the audit report, but the damage is permanent. I finished. He didn't argue. We lost every federal contract. The partners pulled out. I'm trying to hold things together, but... He trailed off. Anyway, if there's anything I can do, anything you need. I almost laughed. What I needed was respect. That's free, Franklin. There was nothing left to say. He muttered something about wishing me well, then hung up. Afterward, I just sat there, letting the quiet settle around me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even vindicated, just done. That afternoon, I printed out the federal letter, slipped it into a clear frame, and set it on my desk. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to Agent Donovan. Dear Agent Donovan, thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to formally accept the consultant role. I've attached references and documentation of my previous audit experience. Sincerely, Mandy Carson. I hovered over the send button for a second, not because I doubted it, but because I finally understood the weight of calm decisions. Then I clicked. The next morning, I walked to a small co-working office downtown. Nothing fancy, just a few shared desks and a window with light that didn't flicker. I signed the lease for one of the cubicles under a new name, MC Compliance Consulting. On my first day, I brought a mug from home. It read, Integrity. Doing the right thing, even when HR is watching. At noon, I made a sandwich, turkey, mustard, a little lettuce, and sat at my desk to eat it. No one stopped me. No one stared. No one took photos. Just silence. The good kind. Later that week, Miranda stopped by. She handed me a small envelope. This came to my house by mistake. Probably meant for you. Inside was a faded piece of paper, the infamous HR email printed out, my old badge photo and all. Someone had scribbled over the words "Do not rehire" and written instead in blue pen. She was right. No signature, just that. I placed it next to the framed letter from the Department of Energy, two artifacts of the same story. Humiliation turned into proof. Injustice turned into purpose. Sometimes I think about Lexa, about that boardroom, about how one careless email became their undoing. But mostly I think about how fragile dignity is, how quickly it's stolen, and how quietly it can be reclaimed. They fired me for leaving 2 minutes early. But in those 2 minutes I gained something none of them ever will. The power of silence backed by truth. I leaned back, took another bite of my sandwich and smiled. Lunch break, I said to no one in particular. No approval needed.